I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Board of Leavenworth County Commissioners. I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to start with a moment of silence. Roll call, I'll start with Commissioner Culberson.
Here.
Commissioner Cos.
Here.
Commissioner Smith's here. Commissioner Shimke. Commissioner Stevens. All commissioners are present. I'd like to open up the public comment portion of the meeting. Any public comment relating to the budget, we're going to have a public hearing, and we'll allow public comment during the public hearing on the budget, and rather just hold your comments till then, if that's okay with everybody. Any other thing that's related to public comment we'll take right now.
So I know everybody on the board knows me, but for those in the room who don't know me, my name's Pat Proctor. My wife and I own the Bontai restaurant here in town. We also own a number of residential and commercial properties here in Leavenworth, and we're heavily invested in revitalizing the downtown and creating jobs in the community. I'd like to add my voice to those who have already come before this board in the last few months asking you to reconsider a decision not to reduce the mill levy. The Leavenworth Times describes your decision as keeping property taxes flat, but that doesn't accurately describe what's happened. Valuations increased across the county this year, often many times the rate of inflation. The decision not to make even a modest decrease in the mill levy amounts to a de facto property tax increase on the people of this county. I'm not making this plea out of some knee-jerk ideological reaction or aversion to taxes. Others have already made a number of great arguments to you for decreasing the mill levy. I know that, like me, over the last few weeks, a number of you have heard from residents who are in danger of losing their homes because of increases in property taxes. I'd like to give you a tangible example of how this de facto tax increase hurts economic development. A few blocks from here, across from Haymarket Square, my wife and I are restoring a couple of old buildings. When we're done, we'll open a new restaurant, and a business tenant will open a gourmet cheese store next door. We'll also reopen a few loft apartments that had fallen into disrepair and sat vacant for many months. The restaurant and the store will create maybe a dozen or more jobs, and the apartments will place 5 or 10 new residents downtown within walking distance of all the businesses in downtown Leavenworth, generating sales tax revenue for the city and the county. Our restaurants are doing well, but we're not made of money. We can only proceed with this project as money becomes available to invest. This de facto property tax increase has had a tangible effect on the pace of our development. Say 10% increase in our property taxes across Leavenworth County slows this development by 10%. That's 10% longer that a dozen people have to wait for a new job, and 10% longer that 5 to 10 new customers will have to wait before they can move downtown. And we're only one developer in downtown Leavenworth. There are other business people in town that are similarly hindered by this tax increase. Multiplied across all the developers investing in revitalizing downtown, dozens of jobs and dozens of new residents are delayed in their arrival. And it's impossible to calculate how many developers simply won't invest in Leavenworth because of the higher taxes. Over the past few weeks, I've heard a number of arguments from some members of this board for not implementing even a modest decrease in mill levy. I'd like to briefly address them here. I've heard that if you choose to decrease the mill levy, you can increase it again later. That's simply not true. You can raise the mill levy, you just have to take it to the voters for approval first. As it stands, this tax increase was opposed with basically without the consent of voters through large increases in valuation. I've also heard we're the 6th largest county by population, but 11th in tax revenue, as if this is a bad thing. I'd suggest to the Board of Commissioners that you put this on a billboard at every entrance to the county. This is a reason for investors to come to Leavenworth and create jobs and opportunity, not a problem that needs to be fixed. There's one argument I haven't heard from those commissioners who want to keep this de facto tax increase in place. I haven't heard it from the department heads and staffers who've been in here over the last couple of weeks talking about their budgets either. I haven't heard anyone lay out specifically how much more property tax you're collecting this year and exactly what emergency or change in the conditions in Leavenworth County demands that you keep and spend our money rather than returning it to us. Did the population explode to a much greater rate than the rate of inflation? Has there been some natural or man-made disaster that has created a new requirement for the county that needs to be addressed? I would humbly suggest that this money will do more good for the county if it's put back into the pockets of the county citizens, spent in the private sector, growing our economy and creating jobs. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Proctor. Anyone else want to speak in public comment? Then we'll close public comment and move on to administrative business. Mr. Lawfrey?
I have a couple of items today. First, just an update. I received it late yesterday afternoon that on the one of the dust abatement projects, the one just on the south end of Lansing, the Kelly McPherson Road area, when they did the utility locates, identified that the phone line runs along the edge of the road, and they potholed it yesterday and discovered that it is shallow enough that the base stabilization process would interfere with it. So that likely will delay that part of the project. They're looking into what the options are right now, but I just wanted to kind of give a heads up so that anybody who lives along that area realizes it's still on our slate. It's just there's potential for delay because of the utility line in the way.
We have minimum depths on our utility policy.
Well, I'm sure over the years that road has probably expanded a little and probably has a little less cover than it used to when that line was put in. But we have the 9 inches of base stabilization, and when they potholed it, they determined that line is less than 9 inches below the surface of the driving surface of the road. So, which probably is a good idea to move it anyways. You don't really want to put asphalt over the top of a utility. It's not across ways, it's down the length of the project. So it's not just a simple lower just the section that goes across the road. It runs down the entire length of one of the roads on the project. So
that's why we need inspectors when utilities are being installed in a right-of-way.
Yeah, this one is, like I said, I can't imagine that we would have allowed them to put their line in the road surface itself, so it's probably been there for a long time and the road's just slowly grown. So, but either way, we're looking at what the options are. Hopefully they can determine the most expedient route to take so that we can keep the project on. And they were looking, the original response was they thought 6 weeks, which would still allow us to get it done before the end of October, which with this particular process is still in the construction cycle. Okay. So just wanted to give you all a heads up just in case it comes. In case it is a delay, I wanted you all to know that. The other item I wanted to bring up is the Public Works Director recruitment. Last week I handed out some proposals from 3 different groups, and then we received another one over the weekend that I forwarded on to the Commission as well. In reviewing those, I've also handed you a sheet that kind of just gives a quick comparison. It's definitely not thorough. Obviously, the proposals vary based on what they offer and what they provide and their experience level. Typically in something like this, we would look at first qualifications. I believe that all 4 firms that provided a proposal are qualified. They obviously, again, their service level is differ, so you have to take that into consideration. But I do believe they're all qualified to conduct a candidate search. Their approach is, the 3 top ones, the approach is very similar in that they come out, interview the board and any staff that we want them to have interview with to determine what the real need for the job is. They identify some goals for the position as it moves forward, and then they do a recruitment brochure, and advertise the county and the position at the same time. Those 3 firms all work either exclusively with government or with government and nonprofits. The 4th firm, the one on the bottom, I think their recruitment process is a little bit different in that they do recruitment for, in this case, they do recruitment for engineers in the construction industry and a few other industries as well, but obviously the engineer position is the one that we're looking at. They didn't give me enough information to know if they come out and do the interview process and identify the requirements of the board, but they do have a large pool of applicants already in their on their list that they could reach out to immediately to try and recruit. So
Just a little pricey.
their percentage is a little higher than what the others would be, and based on the wages, it would put them at the high end of the range. Their guarantee is only a 30-day guarantee. If for whatever reason we would hire the person and it wouldn't work out at the end of 30 days, they're covered. The other groups, the two of them have 24-month guarantees where if for some reason the person didn't work out in that 24-month period, they would come out and redo the recruitment process. They all have a guarantee that they will get a qualified candidate that the county approves of. If that takes longer than their proposed timeline, they keep working until they get us a qualified candidate. There is one of the groups that has an 18-month guarantee. Given that they're all qualified, that they all have a similar approach as far as the top three that I have listed there, then it would be reasonable to work off of what is the most cost-effective for the county. And I think that is the Novak group. I am comfortable with any of the four groups. I think, again, they would all do a good job for the county. But again, just simply based on price, the Novak group, with their price and their experience, I think would be the candidate that I would recommend.
Mark, my question is guaranteed to fill is obviously a pretty big leap. One, we're going to have to sign off on that candidate, so
Right.
we control
Right.
whether someone's hired or not. And the
Yes.
first three versus the last one, that was a guaranteed fee. So that was a fee that was paid up front, regardless of what the result was, where the last one's only compensated upon placement, correct?
Yes, the first three, it's billed in phases, so they bill a third, and a third, basically, and it varies a little bit, but that's the overall principle. So a third when they start the process, a third when they advertise, and a third when they fill the position. The last one, the Austin Nichols, their proposal is based, they only get that fee once we hire a person. And the guaranteed to fill, what I mean by that is they will continue to recruit until they provide us a candidate that we accept. So if it takes them 15 weeks or 13 weeks or 30 weeks, they will continue the recruitment process until they find a candidate that we accept. That's what the guaranteed to fill means.
Commissioners, got any other questions, Mr. Lawfrey?
No, I'd just like to at least recommend or see what our options are as to either further negotiate with like an Austin Nichols to say, we love a commission-type structure and that the result of your efforts results in compensation. And the other offers that we've been presented are, 18 to 24 months versus 30 days, and see what they would be willing to offer in return, or it's a take it or leave it. Maybe that's already been asked, I'm not sure.
I did not ask him that question. I asked him for the same information I asked the other groups, and I got the proposal that I've provided to y'all.
Any other questions? Any thoughts?
I guess I'm still hopeful that across this board and staff and network and resources that we might be able to recruit this person without the help of an outside resource, but I think it's in our best interest to have one to potentially accelerate it.
I did reach out. Basically, was referred to League of Municipalities, but that's still pretty limited. This is nationwide here.
Sure. Oh, I think we should do both for sure.
I just read through these. One thing I like about the Baker Tilly is they do this management style test that's not included in, that's something they specifically outline, and they also have 30 years of experience compared to Novak has 18 years of experience. But what I the thing I thought about, what the Novak group, they have this deal where they follow up. We support top candidates' long-term success by creating a goal-driven work process. Or they follow up after you've hired, they follow up with you, and I think that's a good thing. So both these two companies seem pretty good. But I'm not really as familiar with the last one that came in. Yeah, talking about.
Any thoughts?
I just thought they were all, seemed to be well qualified. I kind of like the Novak because of the pricing. I mean, as far as cost effectiveness and then all things being equal, to spend
This
less.
is the first time we've used a company like this.
Right.
Seek out an candidate.
But then it would be nice to know if Austin Nichols was willing to negotiate their fee
And they're guaranteed.
and their guarantee. Yeah.
It's 30
That's
days.
30 days isn't much.
No.
That was one of, I kind of like, well,
Have you used them before?
They're the one I'm most familiar with. I mean, there's more firms that do this than would fill this room.
Right.
It's just
Right.
one that I'm more familiar with. And again, I think if we can get the fee negotiated and definitely the guarantee of placement, they're the only group that gets paid for actually doing the job. And I'm not trying to be critical of the others. They start getting paychecks immediately, and we could be here in 18 months without a candidate we've signed off on, and we've paid them their full fee without the result. So I guess skin in the game is something I appreciate, so.
So is the consensus of the board, you'd like for Mr. Lawfrey to negotiate?
just at least ask if their fee is negotiable.
Okay.
So if they would reduce their fee and match the guarantee of the other entities, you believe that that is the firm that this group supports? Or do you want to bring a couple of them in for interviews, or do we need to use the recruitment firms at all? Those are they're all willing to come in for interviews. This is, again, this was a recommendation by the board to bring in a recruitment firm, which I think is a good idea. So I want to make sure that.
We have to.
How fast could we get the top two candidates in for an interview?
You mean the two firms, the top two firms? So that would be Novak and
I don't know. That's up to the other.
I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with us meeting with all four if we can coordinate that and do it in a timely fashion, just to share with them our concerns and help in that negotiation process. I mean, they have to be willing to meet too. It takes two.
I can do that. I can try to schedule for next week, Wednesday afternoon maybe, a work session where you can sit down with each group and have any questions answered or.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big hire. We've never used a firm like this before, so I think that's a good idea.
Okay. That's consensus. You go with that, Mr. Culberson?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then we
That's what I'll do.
really get moving on it. All right. Any other administrative business?
I do not have any other administrative business.
Okay. Yeah, any commissioners have anything?
What about study about that?
They met yesterday. Has commissioners had a chance to look at the consent agenda? Is there any questions on the consent agenda? The only thing I might add is next, on the 29th, Commissioner Cos and myself will be attending a legislative summit in Riley County. That probably should be put on the agenda.
And Paris will go tending with us.
And I do want to make one comment, just a public comment. My second cousin, Shannon Meyer, is the daughter of Mike and Debbie Tollis. She's going to become the first woman ward at the Lansing Correctional Facility, and we're really proud of her. She's also a Leavenworth County girl, so we can all feel proud.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Yep.
I just had one. It was a firm that I wasn't familiar with. It was page 5, the Affinis Corp. One that I hadn't seen yet. Amount was $14,644. Just was curious if nobody knew.
That's an inspection group where they do our road, or construction inspection.
Construction inspection.
That should be the final payment on 147. Is that the one you're talking about?
Well, it didn't give the detail of the project. It just gave the,
You sure?
Where were we?
it's page 5. Oh, you're right. It is mentioned 147th. Yep.
Okay, that should be
No,
final
you're right.
payment.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
That's all I had.
Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Having none, voting?
Aye.
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 That's carried. All right. Are we ready to open up, go into the budget and then go ahead and open up the public hearing on the budget, or do you want to start with something first?
No. That's,
All right, then we'll open up the public hearing on the 2020 Leavenworth County budget. Anyone wanting to speak on public comment on the public hearing? Mr. Scheller?
My name's Larry Scheller, and I live on Donahue Road, Tonganoxie, Kansas.
Good morning.
And for several years, the word flat gets thrown out at budget time, and it's not just you. It's cities, it's schools, it's fire districts, it's libraries, and it's not flat. Let me give you a little example of how far back this goes, because I just laughed when I read it. 2 weeks ago in the Tonganoxie Mirror, the Mirror always has a column that says 25 years ago, 50, 75, 100,
Yep, I read it every week.
125 years. And under 125 years, there was a comment that the district clerk was reelected. The mill levy is the same as last year, 18 mills. Same, flat, even, no increase. But the truth of the matter is, the appraiser went out and added $50,626,609 worth of valuation last year in Leavenworth County. And if the mill levy remains flat, here's your headline, John. Taxes are going to go up $1,878,319 in 1 year. That's what this flat mill rate is going to produce. The other thing I noticed is that your general fund, in 2 years' time, is going to increase 32.14%. I just find that mind-boggling to think that you're going from actual in 18 of 20,981,000 to proposed next year of 27,724,615. Like I said, you're not alone. Everybody plays the game. Everybody wants to give off the impression that if it's a flat mill levy, everything's going to be ducky, and it's not. Now, to their benefit, 453 and 458, two school districts in this county, of which I am a member of 458, are actually reducing. 458 reduced their mill levy a half a mil last week. I read that in the paper, and I think, I'm not sure, but I think 453, who meets tonight, is proposing like a mill and a half reduction, which tells you that all of these, and none of these districts have your value. They have a portion based on their geographical area. So you've got two school districts, and let me tell you, it seldom happens that school districts reduce mill levies. It just doesn't haven't. And we got 2 school districts that are willing to reduce their mill levy this year. The other thing that I noticed in this budget, and I haven't had a chance to really look at it because I just got my hands on it today, but I noticed that the transfers for next year are up $4,574,803. That's a pretty good bump in transfers. $4,574,803. So, just as a little history lesson, 2 years ago I appeared up here. That's the only other time I've ever come in. And Commissioner Holland was making a big deal out of putting a new roof on the Justice Center, and he wanted to increase the mill levy $500,000 to pay for the roof. And I didn't question the new roof. I'm sure it needed a new roof. What I questioned is whether you really needed to raise taxes $500,000 in order to pay for it. Because at the time you had like $1.2 million in the old sales tax. So I suggested that they use the old sales tax instead of raising the mill levy. And of course, they kind of blew me off and threw out a couple other things that had to be paid for. And so I just shut up and sat down. Sometimes it's better to keep your mouth shut. I noticed in the published budget that instead of spending all that money that they had 2 years ago, they only spent $132,300. They didn't spend the $1.2 million that they said they were going to spend. And for the coming year, there's still $1,465,000 left in the 10-year sales tax. There's more money in there next year than there was 2 years ago when I was making a plea to pay for the roof out of the sales tax. So I'll give you a compromise. Nobody likes that word. Washington doesn't do it. The state doesn't do it. Nobody likes to compromise. And it's just a suggestion, just like spending the sales tax was 2 years ago to put the roof on. Instead of going up to $1,878,000 plus, why don't you split it in half? You still get a $939,000 increase in taxes, and the taxpayer save $939,159 in the process. My taxes are still going to go up, but they're only going to go up maybe half of what they would if this budget passes in the form that it's in.
Mr. Scheller, everything you put out was correct except for 2 years ago. It was 3 years ago you came.
Okay, all right.
It's 2016.
I stand corrected on that.
It was 2016. They raised it $500,000 to do the roof on the Justice Center. When we did the 2018 budget, I thought $500,000 was going to come off because I came on. I just thought, well, we're going to get rid of that.
Well, I made a big deal out of reducing the mill levy the following year.
But we only reduced it a quarter.
I know, and the understanding at that time was, well, you can't tie future commissioners to what this commission does, and that's a true fact. And you're right. A year later, it was a quarter. And
then we did a quarter last year. So now that $500,000's gone, and now we got to move on to the next one.
Yeah. So, it's my understanding, at least the last vote I seen, there's 3 members up here that want to keep the mill levy quote unquote flat.
Well, it's a consensus of what to vote.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
And how many years were you the county clerk?
I was clerk 14.
14 years.
I hired this lady right here.
Okay.
I hired that lady right over there. I must have done 2 things right.
Yes, sir, you did. Thank you for your comments.
Thanks, Larry.
Anyone else want to speak in public comment on the budget?
Thank you. I'm Cecilia Cecilia Pruitt, 21800 Parallel Road. I think this gentleman just stole all of my thunder.
Well, he's going to be a pretty hard act to follow.
He is. So all I have to say is, I think all of you need to look at what life is right now out there. My experiences in healthcare, my husband's experiences with the railroad, I can tell you that all of these industries are being asked to do more with less. You, however, have just gotten this dramatic increase from the reevaluation, of which I will say Southern Leavenworth County, in my opinion, seems to be bearing the brunt of this. Like this gentleman, I've been following, and I see two commissioners who have been fighting and trying to hold this down. A $500,000 decrease is not going to make up for what happened to my taxes. I want to know why the other three of you are not willing to try to work on a more economical budget and help out your constituents. We don't always get everything we want. Right now, I have two friends who are building properties at Truman Lake to retire in because it is so much less expensive to live in Missouri than Kansas. I don't think you want to lose your young families with children. I don't think you want to lose your retired people who do all the volunteer work in this communities. Just my thought. But I want to thank this gentleman because he threw the facts out better than I could.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wanting to speak? Yes, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
My name is David French. I live at 950 Holiday Drive in Lansing, Kansas. I'm also the state representative for the 40th District, which is the city of Lansing and the southern part of the city of Leavenworth. I'm not going to tell these commissioners how to do their job. That's up to them. That's what they got elected to do. I don't know about you, but I'm getting all kinds of emails, texts, phone calls from my constituents saying they can't handle anymore. This state raised the state income tax 2 years ago, largest tax increase in the history of the state. That hurt. That hurt a lot of taxpayers here. This year, again, we have double-digit increases in our property taxes. These two people that you just heard talk to you just were a small minority of the people that are really stressed out about the increased taxes. I believe that this commission can reduce their mill levy this year, even if it's a quarter. I don't care. At least it's a token that you have some sympathy for the taxpayers in this county. I realize that you have a job to do, but it's always easier to spend money than to try to decide what can be cut to maintain a reasonable budget. All I ask is that you remember, as officials of this county, that the money you're getting is not your money. It's the taxpayers' money. You should always consider their thoughts and their requirements before you add additional requirements to the county. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on the budget, on our public hearing?
Hi, I'm Becky Slegel. I live at 16399 Crider Road in southern Leavenworth County.
Morning.
Last year, my taxes almost doubled. I have a modest 3-bedroom home with a full basement, but I live on farmland, which we have 120 acres that we are still paying on. Right now, with my salary, it's taken me 2 months to pay my salary, or to pay my taxes. I want to retire in a few years. I can't afford to. You're hurting everybody out there. I just want you guys to know that, and I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, then we'll close public hearing on the 2020 budget. Does staff have anything to report on the budget?
Well, just to address some of what Larry had said, yes, the transfers did increase, but that increased due to us reappropriating some of the employee benefits from general fund into employee benefits. So that's why there was a big increase in general and a big increase in the transfers. So I just thought I should address that.
Overall, that
But the
doesn't,
benefits part was for the sheriff's department, you mean, for?
And
Sheriff,
the EMS,
EMS.
and that was just us reappropriating the benefits that they use in that department.
it didn't change the overall expenditures. It just reallocated them to a different fund.
Right.
Just,
But that's so they don't, under the tax list.
right. And, Larry's exactly right. He just saw it today, and so, of course, we can discuss some of those with him afterwards. But I just thought we should address that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion.
There's
I move that the Leavenworth County mill levy assessment be reduced by 1/4 mil for the 2020 fiscal budget year, and that such mill reduction be funded by reducing the balance in non-appropriated fund balance by the appropriate amount.
You wouldn't want your motion to just leave it up to staff to figure out where to reduce it, or you think that's where?
Well, I spoke with staff, and that was seemed to be an
All
appropriate
right.
place.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Well, then I'll second it. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Well, I have something to say, and then
Okay.
you can, okay. Running an efficient county government and providing for adequate infrastructure, public safety, health, and general welfare during the budget adoption process and throughout the year is something I take very seriously. Many hours of serious contemplation have gone into crafting a budget that meets statutory requirements as well as the needs of our citizens and the departments tasked with addressing those needs and requirements. The proposed budget, which, yes, using a flat mill, and yes, that does translate to additional funds that came through the valuation process, does not, in my opinion, reflect excessive spending, disrespect for the taxpayers, or irresponsible use of taxpayer dollars. I realize that there are individuals who are unhappy with our proposed budget and hope that the Board of County Commissioners will lower the mill. I have also heard from others who are satisfied with the proposed budget that reflects that flat mill levy. The local ad valorem tax relief withheld by the state for more than a decade and unfunded mandates placed upon local governments by our state legislature makes it increasingly difficult for the Board of County Commissioners to lower our mill levy, even during a period of increased valuations, and especially in light of the tax lid placed on some government entities and not others. I would highly recommend that those who are sincerely interested in lowering our local taxes take it upon themselves to discuss with our state representatives the decisions made at that level and how those decisions impact our local government. In my opinion, lowering of the mill would negatively impact services and would be irresponsible given unanticipated infrastructure expenses and the increasing health and safety needs of our county. Therefore, I support the proposed 2020 budget.
Any further discussion?
I've got just a couple of quick things in regards to the feedback we got this morning. I don't know that I've ever met anybody that really likes taxes. It doesn't matter where I've been or where I've traveled, and that's honestly been coast to coast. I think it is helpful from time to time not to only judge our performance
within Leavenworth County over time, but look towards adjacent and peer counties. If anybody owns property in adjacent counties or peer counties, counties our size or larger, I think you'd see that Leavenworth has been much more competitive and frugal than others have. I do think we can do a better job. I think there's an opportunity for us to do that going forward. I think this was very well thought out. There were a lot of discussions within each of the departments. The department heads are the respected subject matter experts in their position. There's a reason they're either elected or appointed. And the feedback that constituents, like Mr. French had shared, we constantly get emails, phone calls, and believe it or not, the conversations I have are far more weighted towards road failures, road improvements, internet accessibility, infrastructure. They far exceed those related to the more recent valuations and change to the budget. So we have a building here that literally is falling down around us. We were lucky no one got hurt. There are lots of things that have been placed on the back burner to try to address and or adjust at the county level to make up for those other increases that we've seen, whether that's within a particular city or township. So realize that we take this very, very, very seriously. I think all of us would love to pay less taxes. At the same time, I don't know how to do that and accomplish what the residents ask us for on a daily, weekly basis. So,
Any other discussion?
Last night I had a town hall meeting at the Sherman Township Fire Department, and I had nearly 80 residents attended. And I went over this budget issue with them. I went over the fact that some of the commissioners the tax lid kind of works against us in some ways, because if we lower the mill levy, then it's very difficult to get it to come back. It requires a vote of the people and I also basically went through the budget with them. And then at the end of the meeting, I asked them, some of the commissioners are taking the position of wanting to, keep a flat mill levy, and other commissioners are wanting to lower it by a quarter to show that we're in solidarity with the school districts and with the other local governments to try to reduce this tax burden that is very heavy on people in our county. And when I took the poll of the people that were at the meeting, 4 wanted to maintain a level mill levy. The rest of the constituents wanted to lower the mill levy by a quarter mil and supported that. So I think if you want to represent your people, we are talking about taking from non-appropriated funds. Instead of having a 2.7 balance in our reserve, we would go to a 2.1 balance in our reserve. We would not affect any services, but we are showing solidarity with our people, and we are in coordination with school districts and other local government. We're lowering our mill levy. If you put these together, it adds up to a significant amount to people. So I think that's the argument, folks. And we're going to increase spending by almost 1.2 million between last year and this year. Why can't, lowering the mill by a quarter mil is about equivalent to $181,000. Why can't we, just like we fund all the services of this county, why can't we dedicate $181,000 to the taxpayer?
and Mike, we've just in feedback to that, we've had a lot of dialogue around the table around what a couple of dollars per person could mean when the market corrects, when valuations correct at a lower mill levy. What does that mean as far as services go? Did you guys do that math?
We come back and we respect the taxpayer and we have a vote of the people to raise the taxes.
Any further discussion? Then for voting.
We're on the amendment.
Well, you
Voting
have a
yes.
motion.
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Yes.
No.
Nay.
All right, then
So now we'll have to have a motion to approve the Leavenworth County budget. And then we will have another discussion on the local service budget, the other funds.
all right, I'll entertain a motion on the 2020 budget.
I will make a motion to approve the 2020 budget as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
No. Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
The second part of the budget hearing is the adoption of the other special districts funds, which would consist of local service, road and bridge, which are the roads outside any of the incorporated cities. It would also include the sewer districts, which are funded through a special assessment in each one of the respective sewer districts. Before we do that, there is a resolution that Becky has as 2019-21 that you each have in your packets, and it is a resolution expressing the property taxation policy of the Leavenworth County Special/other funds governing bodies with respect to financing the annual budget for 2020. So we'll need to pass that resolution and then move on to any discussion that you would have with the special funds
Does
budget.
everybody out there understand that we had basically two budgets to pass? Did anyone have any comments on this other one, the special assessments like the sewer districts and the other special districts? Okay. Continue on. We won't reopen up the public hearing.
So we just would need a motion for the
We need a
resolution.
motion for the resolution.
Motion to approve resolution number 2019-21. Resolution expressing the property taxation policy of the Leavenworth County Special Other Funds governing body with respect to financing the annual budget for 2020.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Then we would need a motion then to approve the governing body Leavenworth County Special Other Funds budget.
I'll entertain a motion.
We have that. Motion to approve the, what is it?
You got it?
Leavenworth County Special Other Funds.
Leavenworth County Special Other Funds for the
Second.
budget year 2020.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 And before we move on to other topics, I would also like to point out to the people who are here that the amount of money that Leavenworth County has had withheld by the state of county is in excess of $1 million a year. And had that money been returned to our county, or had the state not made other decisions such as the mortgage fees,
Registration.
registration, filing fees, all those things adding up, cost, yes, sir, it does, over $1 million a year is what we lost to that, and could have very easily and readily have significantly lowered the mill had the state of Kansas not continued to resolve for the past at least 10 years not to return our LAVTR relief funds, which they have done repeatedly over the years. And that has begun to negatively impact our county, and not just our county, but all the counties across the state. And so for anybody to lay all of the blame on the Board of County Commissioners for something that we have not been able to control, I think is rather appalling. Instead, talk to your local state representatives, ask them why that money was withheld by the state. It's not funny, Mr. Proctor.
If I can speak in public comments that should address me directly, I'd like
Please.
to talk about it. Well, I'd just point out the motion we were talking about was about money that's set aside, $2.7 million. I'm not sure how this $1 million that the state's taking, I'm not a representative, but I'm not sure how this $1 million has any impact on money that's already set aside. It seems to me like Commissioner Stevens' proposal, which has already been voted on, so I'm not sure why you called me out to pick on me, but his motion would have had no impact on services, if I'm correct, because it was coming out of money. It was not budgeted to go to set-asides. I may be mistaken there, but I believe that was the motion.
You're
Called you
correct.
out because you were laughing at me, Mr. Proctor.
I'm 100% sure that a laugh never escaped my lips, Commissioner Cos.
You know, can I make a comment? I think that you're correct. We should talk to our state representatives about this money that's been left behind over the years. I've come to learn about it. I think it's inappropriate. On the other hand, we control the 1.2 million increase, and that's what we have control over. And so we have to take responsibility for what we have control over, and that's what we were talking about.
Amen.
And I understand that, but we also have a mandate to provide community mental health by a state mandate that says we are to provide community mental health in our county, in every county across the state. Our community mental health center reported to us that if they don't begin to get an increase in funding from the county, they may close their doors in 3 years. That's something I take very seriously. I take that concern very seriously. I don't think it's something to smile about or grin about. I think that it's a serious issue. One of the things that happened in this process of budgeting is we provided additional funds to the Community Mental Health Center. That was one
Which we were all supportive of.
Right. So it's just, it's for, I am trying to get people to understand that this has been a building up, an ongoing issue that has negatively impacted our county over the past decade. And it has, and there's no getting around that. We have infrastructure issues that we need to deal with. Up until the passing of this budget, the county had 0 funds in reserve. Now think about that. We had no money in our reserve funds. That's really not a good way to operate. The state of Kansas has money in reserves.
Since I've been singled out,
Please.
to speak again. So, Commissioner Cos, in other settings, I've heard you talk about raising the mill levy as much as $3 million more to pay for those requirements, though you haven't brought it up here today.
To have a vote to bring it for a
I think that your
vote.
constituents would like to know that you're figuring out how to educate the public, is the word I heard you use a couple days ago, on how you're going to raise the mill another $3 million to address those issues.
We are not going to raise the mill. We are going to try to place on the ballot for the voters to make a determination whether or not they would choose to raise the mill for that purpose. We do not have the authority to do that. Neither would I take upon myself to do that if I had the authority. I do believe that's something that the people need to make a decision about. Do they feel it's that important?
I agree. The increase should be given to the voters.
I would just like to point out that the budget that was just approved does increase funding for the guidance center from 197 to 287,000. So it is a significant
Right.
investment.
We're heading in the right
And-
direction.
And I think we're all supportive of that up here.
And I think we gave them 25% increase last year. I
And
mean, we're getting there.
because those are how we impact some of these school shootings, all these things. But at the same time, the taxpayers deserve a nod, in my opinion.
Well, and I'm not giving the taxpayers a shaking of my head. I also have had taxpayers who have told me they fully support what we're trying to do in approving this budget. So there are there are 2 sides to every story and 2 opinions, and I feel that this county commission did an outstanding job working with staff to create and craft a reasonable budget.
I just, on this purpose of education, I mean, I would make one further comment, only that I don't think most know this. Out of 105 counties, Leavenworth County is ranked 95th as far as lowest assessed levies. I mean, I do think it's important to understand where you are relative to the other 100 counties in the state. And I've screamed it from the rooftop that, and I think it was even maybe repeated today, how large we are relative to our tax base. You know, our 12 top employers are in a preferred tax position. They don't pay tax. So we continue to see development happen in and around. And Mr. Proctor, I think what you're doing downtown is fantastic, and I commend you greatly. I think we have a lot of challenges why we're not seeing more of that development. I don't think it's associated with this. I think it's accessibility. I think it's the resources and infrastructure that business expect and need, some of which are still lacking from some of our industrial parks. So I do appreciate and understand, but I do think it's important to know it's not just to compare ourselves year over year or over the last 5. It's to understand how we're performing as a county across the state and even adjacent states, to understand maybe why we don't have more of the services that people so desperately want and what it's going to take to accomplish that. So.
Commissioner Stevens, you said you had 4 people? Okay. Four, okay.
Keeping it level.
I only had 2, but I didn't hold the town.
And I also did a survey over the state fair, and I didn't hear from one person that wanted, that was opposed to lowering the mill levy.
State fair.
The Leavenworth Fair seemed like the state fair, but no, and let me say this. I know this has got a little heated here. We all respect each
Yes, we
other,
do.
and we all respect each other's position, and we all know that we're going to work together. And we crafted this budget. There's a lot of good things in that budget, but I do think because people have just been so impacted, and it is a difference in the districts as well, because up north the valuation numbers were much different than down south. We had 15, even in Linwood, 27% valuation increases in some cases.
23, wasn't it?
I thought it was 27, but anyway, in the 20s. So, and very common in the south part of the county was above 15%. So people were tremendously impacted by the valuation increase, and disproportionately so in the south part of the county.
Like I said, we're just now where we was when Mr. Scheller was talking about the increase to replace the roof on the Justice Center. And I was in the same meetings as you were, and it was pretty much said we'd pull that off the next year. Well, it didn't get pulled off. We got a quarter of it off, and then a quarter of it last year. So it took a couple years to remove that. So basically, we are flat now from what we was 3 years ago. And I apologize for that. I would love to have had a half the next year, but I just couldn't get it done. And last year, all we gave was a quarter, so.
No, I love I can't remember who said it, but do more with less, and I think that's a tremendous motto. At the same time, I think there's ways in technology you can accomplish that. I haven't figured out how to do it with roads. Everything that goes into a road today is a hell of a lot more expensive than it was last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. So.
And we have a lot of roads to repair.
766 miles.
Well, and,
Very good.
but Commissioner Shimke, we did do that. We changed our road policy where we don't go in and move all the utilities and purchase right away. We are doing more with less, so.
I haven't said a whole lot because no matter what you say, people don't like their taxes going up. So I could sit here and go over a dozen things. It isn't going to make them feel any better about taxes going up. But the bottom line is the cost of insurance and comparable wages and goods and services went up. So we have to cover that. We went through these budgets and we didn't give everybody what they asked for. Not even close. We're unfunded state mandate means we have to keep the mental health department open. The state doesn't help us pay for that. We had to do that. They told us in 3 years they're going to be out of business. They wanted $500,000, or they're going to be out of business. They're going to close down. We couldn't give them $500,000. That's just an example. We gave them a little, but we couldn't give them what they asked for. We did that with everybody. So the bottom line is, you want to cut people, you want to cut services, what do you want to cut? We cut as much as we could. We did as responsible a job as we could. I know people aren't happy if we couldn't lower the taxes, but that's just the way it works. Now, things like Stein Die try to keep policies from past boards binding future boards. It's kind of like that for the budget. We couldn't do it this year because there was a lot of things already in motion. We were already earmarked to spend money on outside sources and outside departments and some things that were already supposed to be paid for. So we couldn't just pull the rug out from under them this year. But this board is doing some things that you're going to see a lower in spending and doing more with less next year and the year after. But we can't really do a lot the first year we're here because we were already handed most of this stuff on a plate. Say, there you go, deal with it. So just give us some time and you're going to see some results. We're doing things like we're not renting real estate anymore. We're going to stop doing things like that. There's a lot of things we're putting in motion that you're going to see. You just got to give us some time.
Well, hopefully we'll see more businesses. We've made an investment. Hopefully we'll see a return on our investment. Okay. Does anybody else have anything to say to comment on the budget? I think so.
Oh, I had one more thing.
Okay.
Pat was asking what natural disasters happened that caused the budget. Well, we had a flood or tornado. We've had the worst winter we've had in 30 years. So actually, there were a lot of natural disasters that happened this last year that directly affected the budget. So just to answer that, that's all I have.
Okay.
And yet, we did increase spending by 1.2 million.
And it wasn't enough.
All right. Well, I apologize, we couldn't get the budget, the mill levy lowered a quarter mil. Maybe we'll do it at half next year. So, all right.
I just have one more thing. I get this in the mail from the railroad, U.S. Railroad Retirement Board, and it tells you how much you've made your entire career. And not now, but just a few years ago, it said 1.2 million in my entire career. So to put in perspective how much money that is that we're increasing spending, it's a lifetime worth of work for some people.
All right, we'll move on to the county appraiser. See here? Oh, Mr. Weber, you were hiding in the back.
Morning.
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 Have a proposed board order here. This is for the tornado damage, property tax relief for those properties that were destroyed or substantially destroyed due to the May 28th tornado. David did make up a board order here to try to make it easier, so he could pass it in one, because there's 33 properties here. I just want to point out that I have a spreadsheet there. I put in a cost repair and the percent of damage, and it needs to be 50%. The bottom ones don't have, you see that field is not filled out, and I have a note on the side. They have not provided me with insurance, or had trouble getting insurance information, but those homes are destroyed, they're gone. So I did include them on the list.
And I know there's some people out there that are still negotiating with their insurance company that their house is over 50%.
Yes.
And
I've got a number of applications sitting
all right. So
there,
there is some
waiting
more
on,
process.
yes, and
Okay.
they still have a chance, you know.
Okay. 'Cause
They have quite a bit of time, actually.
I
We'd
know
like-
one in particular, I mean, the house was moved off the foundation a little bit and the bottom of the wall buckled in and they're still wanting to repair it.
I talked to a lady the other day, they're on their 4th engineering inspection, so trying to figure out what to do.
They just keep kicking the can down the road. I feel bad for these folks. And these are name brand insurance companies. So, it's ridiculous, it really is. And, you know, they provide money for them to be displaced, and that money's gonna run out. I mean, so. Anyways, okay. I just wanna make sure that this wasn't the drop dead.
No, it's not. We will
Deadline.
still have some more. And I've had some that come in since I prepared this that do qualify, and then I've got those sitting there. And I'll give them a call back and seeing if they've gotten more information
Okay,
and have not submitted it.
all right.
So we can do this whole.
Yes, we can do it all in one motion. Or
What is the number?
the resolution number.
Board Order 2019.
Or board order, excuse me.
-4.
All right, entertain a motion on the board order.
Motion to approve Board Order 2019-4. I need to read what
Probably wouldn't hurt.
Okay, an order of the Board of County Commission of the County of Leavenworth, Kansas, made pursuant to the authority granted to them under KSA 79-1613, making certain findings regarding the applications for the abatement of property taxes on certain homesteads damaged by a tornado.
You want to second that, Mike,
Second.
since it's your night road?
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? The only discussion I'd have, that it is the home only. It is not barns, detached garages, or anything else. And hopefully, that'll get changed in the next legislative session.
We're hoping that.
So is that, I did have a question about that, since we got obviously very frustrated that other assets around, Homestead weren't covered as a part of this. Who would we enlist? How would we submit? I mean, I'd love to get a proposal out to every one of these representatives that could potentially influence such a thing. I mean, I don't know if that's something you could take the charge on, Bob.
Yeah,
or if
it
that's
doesn't
something-
involve commercial property either, so.
Right.
I mean, from our standpoint, we'd like to be able to do it for everybody.
Exactly.
But, yeah, so,
I know that Representative Dove had said that he has an agreement from the Speaker, Reichman, to bring this up in the first couple weeks, and maybe Representative French, you could work with Representative Dove to maybe get this so the tornado victims can be exempted on, other than their dwelling.
I spoke to Senator Tom Holland, too, on that. That's his area.
Yeah.
I think, I'm assuming that Mr. Weber's the foremost expert on this, so he could probably help build that
yeah. I think
conversation.
just,
argument for them.
whatever it takes to get the legislation through, so, and drawn up and.
And it takes a disaster like this before it opens your eyes, and all of a sudden I'm paying taxes on a building that doesn't exist. I feel bad for them.
Prior to 2013, there was none.
Right.
And it took a disaster to get this through.
Yeah,
But-
to get the homes. But like I said, some of these structures were pretty nice structures as far as the buildings. They weren't just dilapidated barns and stuff. So hopefully they'll get them rebuilt. But I did notice the dollar amounts on the rebuild, so there's going to be some more appraisal increases. So next year we'll be able to lower it to half. So, anyways, all right. Any further discussion? Then voting?
Aye.
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 Thanks for doing that.
All right,
Bob,
thank you.
for all
Yeah,
the
thank you.
folks. I'm sure they appreciate it. Okay, Mr. Lawfer, you have additional information on the comprehensive plan, on having additional meetings? Or Mr. Joseph?
I think Mr. Joseph has additional information. This is on the agenda at the request of the board from last
Yeah.
week's meeting.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
During the last meeting, the commission asked the consultant to come up with a proposal to include 5 more focus group meetings, and they have done that. Actually, they have a proposal where they cut a lot of participation in the meetings. As far as my recommendation goes, it's that's one of the things that we hired them, is to participate in the meetings and conduct the meetings. That's their expertise. So what I would like to see is maybe They also indicated that if it's like $5,000, they can include some of the meetings on there.
So I didn't quite understand. Are you saying that they're saying they're not going to participate? They won't be at the meeting?
Some of the meetings, yeah.
What they included was a proposal that if you wanted to do all the meetings as discussed last week, the cost is approximately $10,000. It's a little north of that, but close to $10,000. They did identify, because they were asked to, they did identify some areas where they could cut their current budget to accommodate that for the $10,000. And the way they did that was through limited participation or a reduction in participation in future meetings. I think that,
So is that like less staff at the charrette or what?
Yes, so it says that they'll delete like 40 hours of participation in the meetings, which is really significant because we really need them there to conduct the meetings.
So that's like what? If it's 3 days, it's a couple heads?
yeah, maybe instead of bringing 4 people, they bring 3 people and for some of them and 2 for some of them. It's, I think they did exactly what they were asked to do. They came up with a solution that the board had asked. I'm always hesitant when they start cutting things because those were obviously areas that they identified that were needed in the original proposal. So to cut them now, I don't know what that means for our end product, but the $10,000 is the total cost. Like I said, it's a little over $10,000. But if the board wanted to go through with the additional meetings, I think our suggestion would be that you just choose to fund those additional meetings if that's the intent, and versus reducing the services that we've already contracted for.
And so, and their proposal was 10 grand for one location for 2 days?
5 meetings, 2 days.
Because I thought in their initial proposal, it was 2 locations and it was like 8 grand.
No, actually, the proposal is included in the packet.
No, I'm talking about the very first one.
That was still, I think that was still 10,000 is what I recall. We talked about 8,000, but they were trying to work that out, but when it came out, it's still 10,000.
Any thoughts on this?
Besides aggravating?
Well, that's,
I think I remember what you're talking about, Chad, and I think he said it was a rough estimate. I think he said, don't hold me to it, but I'll put a pencil to it, if I remember the conversation right.
should've went
When he was
higher,
guessing
than
8
that.
Well, there was an initial proposal,
on paper?
yes.
Okay.
So I
didn't see it.
I don't have it. I should. I will find it.
Okay. I thought you were talking about the conversation we had with the vendor.
I think it said $8,000 to $10,000, I think that's.
But it was still 2 locations, not 1. We've pared it down from 2 locations to 1 location, and it's the same amount or more. So something doesn't, that math don't work. So I will look.
Doesn't hurt, but-
Yeah, you're correct.
What do you think, Commissioner?
Well, I'm not sure for $10,000 we get a lot of bang out of our buck with participation personally in one.
We had 54 participate.
Did
A
you?
lot of money even if we doubled it.
Did you give a plug at it last night? Mind everybody?
I had great participation last night.
No, did you?
The survey.
Did you,
Oh,
remind
sorry.
everybody the
No, but I
survey?
have been on the, Vicki and I have been doing it on
We've been
the.
doing it on Facebook.
On Facebook.
We've gotten some response, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
I talked to you, tell them to do it.
I think one of our city commissioners last night said he took the survey yesterday, so.
Okay.
But, I mean, I don't even know if there's an alternative where we could just have our staff do a couple extra meetings. I mean, if getting them, putting together the same type of a meeting that they put together.
So how many
You know.
staff people did they have in Easton and in Tonganoxie?
2.
They had 2 staff people in a meeting.
That's the
We're getting
marketing
a
group.
facility for free, and we're doing 2 days of meetings. It's 5 meetings, and each meeting is what, 3-ish hours?
Each meeting is like 1 hour each.
Three a day, though?
So, yeah, 3 hours.
So you're saying it's 2 people and it's 5 hours over 2 days?
That's what I said, I don't think we get.
And the facility's free, I'm just
And they're
like,
only, they only want
what?
a specific number of people at each meeting, I mean, for it to be productive and.
Correct, it's maximum is like 15 people is what.
Right, but over 5 meetings, you're talking 60. No, 75.
And we've already invested $288,000.
Correct, that's the price that they.
I'm just going,
It's 10 hours for 10,000. I just,
Yeah.
again, I'm going back to, it's 10 hours for $10,000.
Yeah. That's
I
what
guess there's
said.
travel. The facility's free.
Well, the facility
A
actually,
helicopter.
the cost of the facility is not included in the proposal at all.
Well,
Actually,
yeah, I
the
know it's
county.
not, because I told them it's free.
Yeah, county actually paid for the other one.
Right, this is how we got here, is there was an email that said that they thought the facilities were cost prohibitive, and they would have easily been waived had they been asked to. They called, did not disclose who they were, and ultimately we landed in a place that has now yielded tons of frustration.
Yeah.
These 10 hours
I
for
do
10
re-
grand, that's just incredible.
I do recall,
I mean, I know lawyers that charge way less than that.
that would be amazing.
You don't?
I do.
Oh, yeah, way less.
I do recall, I believe what Chad said is correct. I think they did say 2 meetings, though. I don't remember it narrowed down to just 1 meeting.
Well, I just think that it's not.
I'm just going off of the conversation I had with a vendor when I asked him how satisfied was he with the results that we got based on other entities that he does these for. and
1,500 people.
He said he was
Surveys he
satisfied.
was.
He said they were he said the results were average or above, and he was
Even with the
with what we got so far, so.
But the,
focus groups.
the survey only allows, there's no comparison, I think, in what you can provide in the survey versus what they've accomplished in those in-person engagement sessions, but yeah, at $200+ a response from a resident, I mean, that's pretty
If
substantial.
they're not on Saturday, that's any good anyway. You're not gonna get additional pay. If you're trying to get the working people, it would almost have to be on Saturday.
Well, I mean, in Pacer, there was quite a few people, that was an evening meeting.
Well, it was a late afternoon, but there were still people coming in after they got off work to get on the tail end of it.
Maybe we can get them all piled in at the charrette.
Oh, boy. Yeah,
Well, no, it does make that much more important.
we just need to encourage everyone to take the online survey. Just keep plugging away on that.
Well, I think the consensus is there's not an appetite of the board to spend another
No.
$10,000 on top of $288,000 for 50 to 75 responses. I do think it is worth challenging them as to how 2 people over a 5-hour period is worth $10,000 though.
Well, I mean, I don't know their business model, but I could tell you that it's not just that staff time. It's the marketing for the
We would market it.
the meeting, so they can get it marketed. It's the review and analysis of the data afterwards.
Correct, compiling.
Does it seem high? Yeah, I wouldn't want to spend $10,000, but I don't, I mean, I'm not here to defend them. I'm just saying there are other things than just 2 staff members.
Well,
Yeah, I think we've spent enough.
I do
think
too.
it's been, you're absolutely correct.
It's just unfortunate that from the get-go, we didn't
But
get a little
if
bit
it-
more bang for our buck.
Well, like I said, though, he said we were average or above compared to all these that he does for everybody else. so.
I just meant location-wise.
Oh,
that
yeah.
Right,
we
and
had
if
not-
we wouldn't have, a couple thousand more people that take the survey, that'd be fine. I don't think we're gonna get that many more people just because of the meeting. I think we'll get more people. Well, that's
I have a question for
no
Mark.
fun.
Mark, is this a comprehensive plan? Are we thinking by March or April, or what's the timeline that we think this is going to be getting completed? Or maybe Jeff,
March of next year.
March of next year? Because I think
That's
that'll,
kind of what we figured it, all along.
and that's going to be good because that's what everybody's looking for as far as the developers and everybody wanting to have some guidance.
So everyone who's here today, if you haven't taken the survey, everybody who's listening, take the survey. It's on the Leavenworth County, it's linked in the Leavenworth County website. Go in there and take the survey. It does matter. And, well, that's just,
If you want to say in your county, take the
if you want to
survey.
say. And the growth and development, economic development, land use.
Where
all
the
of those-
industrial zones are.
Yeah, industry. Take the survey. It's
Parks and
it's easy.
trails, whatever you're interested
Yep.
in.
Doesn't take a lot of time.
Okay, so it's consensus of the board, we're not interested in any additional meetings?
I think not.
I think we can word it as interested but unwilling to pay
Right.
outrageous.
Exactly. Yeah.
If somebody in the audience wants to donate $10,000, we'll take your
They
donation.
probably do when they go pay their taxes. But anyway. All right, then we'll move on to the
Thank you.
discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mr. Joseph. We'll move on to discussion about the closing of St. Luke's OB unit. And who is going to run with that? All right.
Can I say it? Is that okay?
Set it anywhere
Absolutely.
you want.
Welcome.
Morning.
I brought some friends, commissioners. Thank you for having me.
Name?
Commissioner Cos, thank you. I'm Dr. Lisa Nicholson. I live on Mount Olivet Road. These are some of my coworkers and friends and patients that just came to
Well, thanks for taking the time. to
power
come
in
in
numbers.
today.
Sure. I do have something we hand out. We were at the city council meeting last week where we met Commissioner Cos, and we have some, if you guys, I don't, you're kind of closer if you want to circle around, just some data on women's health care. And so we're here not because we can do anything about the company that decided to end services in this community, but as the only OBGYN that lives in this community and provides care in this community, I find I have a unique vested interest in the well-being of the women of Leavenworth, of the city, and of the entire county, because as of 7 August, there is no longer a location within the entire county of Leavenworth to deliver a baby.
Wow.
There is no place for a woman to have a major surgery of a gynecologic nature in Leavenworth County. I find that abhorrent. I find that unacceptable. I think that that is the modern way of medicine. I find myself to be a pawn in that game, and it's really hard to be at the patient interface taking care of the women and families like the one sitting behind me, and not really being able to control that. Money talks, and money is the reason why decisions are made. Unfortunately, I think, as has been said in the past, the people of this county and the people of this community don't have the right insurance. And I don't have to tell you guys, I've only lived here for a short 10 months after I served a career in the Air Force. I moved my family out here to take this opportunity to become a part of this community. And in the 10 months that we've lived here, I've grown to love and respect the patients and the people that are here. I find it offensive as a woman, as a human being, and as a medical provider that rural communities, and I know there's some argument of whether or not Leavenworth County or the city of Leavenworth is considered rural anymore. We all live here. We know it's rural. But wherever that line is drawn, needless to say, we have a rural community. We have a poor population that is predominant. The greatest demographic of our citizens that live in poverty are reproductive age women, ages 18 to 34. These are the patients that got most significantly affected. The women of this county and of this town are now forced to drive 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour to the next safest place to deliver a baby. Some not even in this state. Actually, the closest place isn't even in this state. And so we take care of patients that don't have the means to go that far. You guys know full well, there are people in this community that if they have a car, it may not even be able to get across the bridge if they're lucky enough to get across the bridge. Let alone, we're facing the winter months, and if it doesn't snow here this year like it wasn't supposed to snow here last year, those roads aren't going to be great to get there, and it's going to take longer than a 25-minute drive to get there. It's going to be unsafe. And we have a lot of pregnant patients who they just won't make it. They're going to deliver en route, they're going to deliver somewhere else, or they're going to choose to deliver at home. I'm aware of a few of my teenage patients who are considering a planned home birth now because somebody in their family is an EMT, and that should scare everybody in this community. Furthermore, I've talked with my ER colleagues who are not adequately prepared or skilled to take on what is going to happen to the ER because we have a community of limited resources and no public transportation. So these women and families, the public transportation out of town to the safest place to deliver is going to be going to the ER and letting them sort it out and transfer them. We have 5 ambulances that serve Leavenworth County. Those ambulances are now going to be their time is going to be taken up taking stable pregnant patients or unstable pregnant patients out of this community to a surrounding hospital. That could be 2 to 3 hour round trip where they're out of this community serving the other health needs of this community. So we are going to start to see increases in our 911 response time. Car accidents are going to maybe not have an ambulance available to respond. Heart attacks, all of those things are going to have an impact because we can't address the needs of this community any longer. And while medicine is a private industry and they get to make those decisions and we are all kind of cogs in that wheel, I do believe that there are ways that we can, as people and as communities, rise up and come together and take care of our own. The people who work in this community want to work here. All of us could have worked in upper middle class suburbia or in Kansas City, but we chose to work here for a reason. Many people, Miss Pam, worked at Cushing for 57 years. I don't even know how you go to the same place for 57 years. I can't even imagine what that's like, but her dedication to the patients, to the people of this community is unparalleled. And she's an example of that, the most prominent example, but I would say that the people who provide care to remote communities or communities with limited resources, we do it because we want to. I came here from DC to practice here, to build a practice here. I still want to do that. It may not be with my current employer, but it may be with a community that mobilizes and does it on our own. And so we have all the parts, the working parts. The problem is we need your help to, one, figure out a way where we as a community can take care of our own, because the health care in this community, and I actually learned something today because I didn't know that about the Guidance Center, and as a women's health provider, probably 50% of what I do involves psychiatric health of women, and that will be devastating to this community. And I don't know that we could ever recover if the Guidance Center leaves. That's our only lifeline. That's the only thing we have. And so those are things that if we desire a future in this community, that is something, these are things that have to be addressed. We have to figure out a solution. And so I appreciate the invite and the opportunity to come and speak to you guys, and I greatly look forward to trying to figure out a solution. Any fundraising thing, we're working on getting a GoFundMe campaign started. We're researching grants that we could apply for, anything that we can do to start funding so we can continue to provide high-quality, reliable health care to women of this community, because it's important. I don't believe just because you're poor or just because you choose to live in a rural community that you should get some substandard level of health care. You should be able to expect the same level of care that is offered in Overland Park It's offered in the Northland, it's offered in Kansas City. I don't believe that just because you live in a rural community that you should get less. And we shouldn't expect that. And so, for that reason, we need to work hard together as a community, because we will fail if our health fails. And I mean, you know, we can fill all the potholes, but.
As you mentioned, I mean, healthcare being private, the last provider that's pulled out clearly made a decision based on the economics. It was the insurance claim that, you know, they're not getting the reimbursements, therefore, or it no longer makes economical sense to do it. Do you think the solution's going to have to be a philanthropic one?
No, I think there's a current movement in medicine to do a direct care and a direct pay model, and there's a group in Lansing that does that does not take insurance. Most of my patients are Medicaid, Medicare, and a lot of patients go to the health department because they're uninsured. And so these are patients that don't have that. And so you could have a scale-based fee, like a subscription service that's less than most copays. I have some patients that pay $500 a month in copays, and that's with private insurance. Some of the marketplace insurances are abysmal, and one, in fact, a few of my patients have it, only allows them to deliver at a hospital in Wichita and at Cushing. I don't know what they're going to do now. So if they had the misfortune of picking that insurance out of the marketplace, then they've only got Wichita now. So I think there's a novel way to do it. I am obviously a physician by trade. I had some military background. One of it was really in a lot of bean counting, and so there are people probably smarter than me that help with that. I have dreams about the way things could go and the way you could tier things based on income and have a fee-based scale in that way that is, most of the direct pay models are less than insurance premiums monthly to get health care. And the people who work here aren't interested in saving up for a Ferrari, just so you know. So we're not looking to make money off the backs of our patients. We want to be able to keep the lights on and feed our families and do the things that we want to do, but take care of our neighbors and our friends. And so that's why we're here.
We talk about demographics often, and so the economics are going to be a serious challenge. So I'm just wondering if a philanthropic arm is more likely to be the
I think that's how it's got to start that way. Yeah, it's got to start that way.
What was the volume that the latest provider was? Any statistics, how many births they had in a? So
I had quadrupled the delivery rate. So when I got here last October, we were delivering 3 to 5 babies a month from out of my clinic, and from September onward, we've got about 15 to 20 deliveries going forward. So there's a lot. This is a very fertile community. So, and there's a lot of teenage pregnancies. I have a lot of 15, 16-year-olds that I've already delivered since I've been here. And they need contraception. They need access to that. And without anybody here, they're going to have a hard time. And the pediatricians are going to have a hard time with no obstetric services. And they're getting older too. And they're wanting to hang up their stethoscope. So this community is staring down the barrel of a real dark place without mental health care, without pediatrics, without women's health care here.
Can I ask you a couple questions? Like Kansas law about midwifery, you as a physician could have a certain number of midwives working underneath you. Is that a potential option? I know also our Dr. Gamble is a family doctor, and her and Dr. Tatar, family doctors, they used to deliver babies, but now they've pulled out of that, and it seems like maybe the liability has caused doctors to pull out.
So liability it's a big thing, and that's huge, especially in our field, and that's what drives a lot of people out. That's what drives you out of private practice and makes you join these big systems. But it's not in the patient's best interest. And so those of us who went into medicine, we take oaths to take care of patients and to do these things. And maybe I'm a little bit of an idealist, but I feel like that's my responsibility. That's why I entered into this field. And so ethically, I feel like I should be here. I could have just picked up and moved to the Northland and just said, well, I guess I got to commute again. But that doesn't help anybody here. It doesn't help my patients who are scared, who don't have any resources. And And there are people just like me that want the best for their families and are in a different situation, but it doesn't mean that they deserve less. The midwife thing is real, and that is kind of what I envision is having midwives. They're a great resource. The other problem with Kansas, though, is lay midwifery is not illegal, which means a lay midwife, so it's anybody who's seen a couple births and it's like, yeah, I'm going to go into business. I'll just, seen a few, I got this, so I'm going to charge you. And it's happening all over this country. They are real good at selling a dream. There's places you can actually buy certificates that look real official, and they can convince patients that they're safe and they're experienced and why they don't need a license, why they don't need any oversight from a physician, why that's important. And in the state of Kansas, lay midwifery, again, is not illegal. There's no required oversight. There is no licensing. There's no regulatory commission. There's no continuing education requirements. So what is going to happen to this community if we don't step up as a community and take the lead on this is we are at risk of being taken advantage of by a substandard care provider that may come in and try and take advantage of our friends and our neighbors and our family members and sell them a dream and say, hey, you don't have to go all the way to OPR. You don't have to go to the Northland. You can stay here. We can do this in your house. I've done this a million times, and then when something goes wrong, there's nobody nearby that can save them and get them out of that mess. And what we do know, there are tons of research associated with closing of rural community hospitals and particularly OB units. And what we know is that when OB units close, the maternal mortality or maternal death rate goes up, and the neonatal mortality and newborn death rate goes up. So more moms and babies are going to die in this community because of lack of access. Women are going to choose just to forego prenatal care because they can't afford to take 3 hours out of their day to go back and forth to wherever they need to see a provider. And so we know that moms who don't get prenatal care are 4 to 5 times more likely to die due to their pregnancy than those who do.
Jamie, quick question, and not to put you on the spot, but if you had to estimate what 15 to 20 ambulance cycles or trips may be if that all of a sudden landed on you rather than one of the local providers, what kind of cost that might be to us if we can't be reimbursed?
Are you talking 18 per year? Are you talking 18?
Well, I was using the full figure.
Yeah, I'd say a good estimate would be a third to a half of those patients are going to show up at the ER, and there's a lot of patients at KU that are uninsured or that seen at the health department that usually would come to us. The Providence patients, the patients who are seen by the group off Eisenhower that are supposed to go to OPR, they all come to Cushing. Most of them, my patients haven't even gotten a formal letter from the provider that owns Cushing, right, or the health system that owns Cushing. They haven't even gotten a letter officially notifying them. And so, for sure, no one else in the community is. People are finding out on Facebook and other ways. And so people are still going to come here expecting, a month maybe.
We are averaging 34 calls a day is what we staff for. But like last week, we were pulling 48 to 50 calls a day and still can handle that call volume. So we don't staff for 50 calls. We don't staff for, the 60 call day per se. That's going to be mutual aid and calling in other ambulance services. There are also other avenues that we have in place with Overland Park that has their own ambulance that comes out with their own incubators and things of that nature if there were a neonate delivered that is in distress or needs to be transported. We have working relationships with Children's Mercy and things of that nature as well. So we can't say how it's going to. If 18 of them show up in one day, that's going to tax the system, obviously. But is there the ability to take on extra call volume? We always have that extra ability to take on call volume. We also have mutual aid agreements with other ambulance services to come in and help.
I was thinking less about your ability to staff the capacity, more about if 7 to 10 trips a month were not reimbursed, the financial impact it has on the county.
That would be something that obviously comes back onto tax base and such on our service here.
So is there anything the county can do to leverage
with Cushing or like to approach them and try to change this decision? Is there any?
I doubt that.
I mean, is there anything that like the city, the county, like the entities of government could do to say, hey, we're.
Yeah, I mean, it's HCA Midwest, is it not? Or no?
What's that?
Is it HCA Midwest or no?
No, it's St. Luke's.
It's what?
St. Luke's.
It's St. Luke's.
St. Luke's Health.
I mean, we could approach them.
Representative
You know,
Pittman,
I mean,
apparently
and
has
see
had a
what-
conversation with them and had even proposed
Expressed concern.
like a private, public
You're sure St. Luke's
partnership,
doesn't fall
and
under HCA Midwest?
he hasn't
Positive.
heard back. So, I think at this point, I know it's a long way out, but any way we can keep this as a topic of conversation, because I do think that, I think a lot of people think women's healthcare is a little like special niche. We're 50% of the population. 50% of the population needs my services at some point, most often multiple points from cradle to grave. And so this is not a niche. We're not talking about plastics or ortho. This is basic women's healthcare that other
And we were all
specialties
born,
don't do.
So it's 100%.
What's
I was
that?
gonna
It's,
say,
we were all born, so
So
it's 100%.
it depends on your angle there, but.
hard to get to where you're going.
Yeah, so, but, yeah.
But is there
I mean,
anything you think that we can do as a county commission? What is it that, I understand you're
Yeah.
educating us, but is there anything direct action that we can do?
I don't know what you guys can do, but mainly because I don't know what you guys can do. So,
Right.
I'm hoping that you guys, knowing your role within the county and in the community, maybe can help work with us to figure out a way we can help take care of patients, because there's a lot that aren't being taken care of. And I am scared for them. I'm scared for what could happen.
I think one of the things that we need to, but we need to make sure that people are aware of the services that are available, like at the health department, that there is prenatal care available through the health
They
department.
will only see you if you don't have health insurance.
If you don't have health,
So
that's
if you-
right.
All my
For the-
patients who've applied for Medicaid, which
Right.
they're authorized to when they're pregnant, they now can't be seen there.
But here's the way I'm looking at this. We probably can't do anything about this, but the writing's on the wall, for instance, for the guidance center. They've told us they're going to shut down in 3 years, so we're getting that told to us up front. Do something about it now before the same thing happens to the guidance center. You happen to come on budget day, so,
Yeah, I was learning.
we gave the guidance center enough money to barely keep the doors open for a couple more years, hoping maybe state legislation might expand Medicaid or some other thing happen for them to keep going, because in 3 years, we're going to be having the same conversation about the guidance center. And then we're going to be saying, well, what could we do? The time to do it is right now, and everybody's yelling about how much money we spend in the budget.
Well, I agree, but we
So-
need something specific and concrete,
Yeah.
I think we're all on board.
No, but what I'm saying is, the guidance center is now in jeopardy of being closed, just like.
And I actually think that I would be, when Smithville's ER, they're closing Smithville's ER as well.
Right.
I would be very concerned about the viability of any other services, like, Cushing may very well end up looking like St. John's right now, in a couple of years. So, and having no services. And if you live in Leavenworth County, you're going to have to leave to get any sort of care. And it just, we're now 1 in 7 counties that don't have a hospital in the state of Kansas. And
I think one of the things that we need to, there's things that we can, maybe identifying another private entity that would want, I don't know, and looking at grants, as you said, looking for grants and things for services, using, those types of things in philanthropy, but,
Charitable organizations, yeah.
to do a birthing center. I'm saying, just a small, not huge, grand operation that, women could safely,
I think that, I
deliver
do
in a
believe
staff.
that those places, there are standalone ambulatory surgical centers that plastic surgeons and orthopedics do all the time. OBGYNs tend not to venture much outside of a health system because of the security of working in a
Right.
big group. But I believe there's a way where you could have a midwifery birthing center with the added safety of having an OR suite down the hall. You could have it be self-contained and not be part of a big hospital system. You could have all outpatient services. You could do that here in Leavenworth. None of us that came today or that I work with are sitting on a pile of cash wondering what to do with it. So, there are people that might be and wondering what to do, and this would probably be a cool thing to do, but to invest in. But I think that there are ways, and I think the only way modern medicine survives to take care of its people is with being innovative and reimagining the way we do business. The current way of doing business in medicine, where insurance companies, pharmaceutical industries, and the bean counters in big health systems are getting compensated at an extraordinarily high rate on the illness and injury of our population. And the people at the interface providing that care every day, we're not the ones benefiting from that. And so the extreme costs are because of all of those things. And so we're going to have to, and it's going to fall on the shoulder of the healthcare providers. We're going to have to be the ones that reimagine this, that are brave enough to step out. And I think maybe Leavenworth has an opportunity here where we have a bunch of smart people, a bunch of motivated people with the skill set. And if we can find a way to redesign this and reimagine the way we do healthcare, maybe people start coming to Leavenworth County to have their baby and they don't live here. Maybe that's how good we get at it, because we do something that no one else does, and we offer them something that no one else does. And so then you can bring in work, you can bring in people to the community that, and start building this community again and filling buildings again that are empty. And I think all of those things are possible, but we just can't look at things in the same box that we've always looked at them. It won't work that way. It's failing rural communities. Hospitals and medical care is being regionalized to urban and suburban areas. And your SOL, sorry about that, if you live anywhere other than that. And, I think the third to a quarter of the country lives in places other than that. So, and those of us who don't live in urban and suburban areas probably don't want to, most of us. So I think that there's a way to do that, and I'm just here to sort of introduce myself, and I hope to have continued conversations with you guys as community leaders and work with you. Met with the city council last week, and like I said, I'm motivated to find a solution. I know it's not going to be fast. For the women sitting behind me that have visible bumps, we're not going to be able to fix what happened to them, but they're here because they care about this community too, and they know that their friends and their family members are going to be benefited or not by what we do and how we handle this going forward.
I think what Chad said about philanthropy and maybe reaching out to faith-based organizations, and I would think that there would be some organizations that if we didn't have services here, that would be an issue to them. And maybe that, I think we all should work together on this, and I certainly think you're raising an important issue.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it seems like a committee that includes stakeholders from, say, the guidance center or the health department, or we could put together a group to hopefully brainstorm, like you say, a lot of smart people together. Hopefully we can come up with some solutions. So,
and like your mental health task force, going to have a task force on.
It does sound way better than committee.
It does.
Well, what about a charrette?
No, that's going to be hard to find.
No, but would you be willing to participate in such a thing?
I would, without a doubt.
Would you be willing to lead it?
I would.
All right, got our first
Well,
stakeholder.
I think there's, I know I'm very interested.
I appreciate the support, and again, thank you, ma'am, for
You're very
inviting us here.
Well, just need to figure out how many people need to be on this task force. Who?
Maybe the good doctor can help us with that.
Yeah.
I've got a few thoughts. I got a few
Okay.
people who'd probably volunteer.
I'd just be, you said you had a member of your group that had 57 years.
Mhm.
How much? I'll be 58 next week, and I was born. How much has that changed over the years?
A lot.
That's, you used to go in the hospital for a week or so. When you had,
Oh, yeah.
And then now it's drive-through service.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was a It was a nice little break back in
Yeah.
the day.
So you've seen a lot of changes over the years.
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes. Some good, some bad.
Well, that's like anything, but.
I will also
That's
say
pretty
my,
impressive, 57 years.
my husband and I are retired Air Force, and so we also have support from the post too. We've been in contact with the garrison commander up there. I have some friends who live on post, and I think that's an important element as well. As a former military health provider, Fort Leavenworth's not going anywhere. And the CGSC families are also a very fertile group of military members, so they seem to come in and be right in the throes of a reproductive state when they get here. So they're one of our biggest industries in this community, and so acknowledging their value and their needs too in this community are important, because a lot of them don't know where they're going, and so they're not from here, so they don't even know where these places are that we talk about. So,
Well, thank you for your
thank you.
service.
Yeah, no problem.
Yep, thank you for your service, and thanks for
Thanks.
settling up.
And I'll get with you to see what we can do to set up some kind of a
Yeah, sounds good.
thing.
I
And
look forward to it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, Lisa.
Dean or Katie have anything to add to that?
No, just a clarification. The health department's MCH program does take underinsured as well as no insurance.
Put that
And
into the
means
microphone.
Care. The Can Care program, so if they're in Medicaid, they can be in our program out of the health department. So that is something that if they're in that process, we also can help them get through that process as well, and we will accept Medicaid payments.
Did you guys hear that? The health department does take underinsured and Medicaid?
We are a Medicaid provider out there.
Our understanding is that our patients are told they're not.
They are eligible.
Okay.
Just making sure, I just wanted to make sure you
As
heard
long as it's
that.
Medicaid, they are eligible out at our program.
I don't think that they're set up to be able to take all my patients.
Oh, no.
They're not, they're.
Our caseload out there is about 80 a year that are in the program, and we do have several slots available every clinic day that are still vacant. So on top of that, out at our clinic, we have a attending physician, a resident, as well as 1 to 2 students. And those are all providers that are seen. So we're having 4 providers at every clinic out there that are seeing every Tuesday afternoon, all of those clients on a weekly basis. So that is something that is readily available. We need to get the word out, because obviously we don't want to have any sort of.
But you can't deliver at.
We do not, we do not. Because part of our program, we have to have a NICU. So that's one of the other.
Exactly.
So, but the advantage also is they go down to KU and they get cost reduced hospital stay as well on top of that, because it's part of the program.
I have been talking with the group, there is a group down on Eisenhower that provides outpatient care as well, but they take all the patients down to OPR. It's owned by HCA. I've been in
Right.
communication with them. I've even talked about, like, even if one of our patients gets taken out of the community in an ambulance, their family might not be able to get to them, or how are they going to get back? And so those are issues as well.
But see, those are things that we can kind of talk about and
Right,
different
and-
types of brainstorming and things about how to address some of those other issues that are kind of
HCA
collateral.
particularly is working on sort of a Ronald McDonald kind of house where families could stay, or even moms in the last month of their pregnancy can stay close to that hospital, because moms who have to drive more than 45 minutes are at an increased risk of death, and their babies are too, because of that. And so those are things that can be done while we're trying to build whatever we want to do here. But and I'm not limiting who we can speak to and who we can work with to take care of this, because it's just, we can't have moms not giving birth at home.
Right.
Or just foregoing care. It's just not safe. So.
Agreed.
What's the chances of having the health department deliver, building on out there, or having the health department
I think the task force could, if that's their recommendation, I mean, the task force will have to study what they recommend.
You got a resident dog. I'm not a resident anymore. Stop it, you're a resident.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you for coming today and open up that dialogue. And I'm sorry we took all your morning, Katie and Jamie. Just about. Is there anything else before us this time?
Just another reminder, if you ever have issues or concerns over anything that's coming before the Board of County Commissioners, for example, next week there will be a somewhat controversial meeting on the 28th. Please submit your concerns or anything that you have to say in writing. It really is a good way of making sure that your opinion or your voice is heard. So shoot us a letter, an email. And that's for anything that's going to come before the commissioners on the agenda that you might want to have a say in, whether it's supporting or not supporting. We'd love to hear from you, but we would love to have it in writing because that's a good permanent record.
I might ask Mark a question concerning the meeting next week and the traffic study, and where do we stand on all that?
Well, I think the traffic study came in, and it wasn't a traffic study as much as a review of the previous traffic study and the concerns that were brought up by the Planning and Zoning Commission. I think that report came in. The applicant hasn't had a chance to review it and respond to us yet. I think they need that opportunity because it's really their business that this is impacting. So I don't have an opinion on what's in there right now, but I would want to meet with them and see how they choose to move forward with their application. Obviously, it's their decision because it's their request for the application to begin with.
I was just trying to get a feel for the timeline if, people are, making their arrangements to attend meetings, that kind of thing.
Would it be appropriate, or at that time, because we'll have to meet, it's on the agenda.
Well, it's public, no, it's been public.
Right, that's why I said that's why I said.
Has to stay on the agenda.
Yeah, we need to have it on the agenda, but is there, if it were necessary, is there a way of sending the whole thing back to the Planning and Zoning and the Planning and Zoning Board, or to table on that day to a later date? I don't know what the process is following that. Or can the applicant withdraw? What could be the potential?
Commissioner Cos, as you appear to be looking in my direction, I'll presume that you're directing that question to me. David Van Paris, good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Your system that handles applications for planning issues does contemplate that from time to time you might refer matters back to the Planning Commission for additional study and findings. I did have the opportunity to meet with Caw Valley, the applicant in this case, yesterday morning. They did have a copy of the study. They were invited to submit questions. I've not received those yet, but upon receipt, we'll forward those on to Wilson for responses. In the event that the board, upon opening your hearing for this matter next week, feels that additional study with respect to a specific issue, in this case traffic safety, is warranted, you can refer that matter back to the Planning Commission with that specific charge. In other words, not just send it back to the Planning Commission, but send it back with direction as to the issue you wish to have studied. And that's already in your rules and regulations, and it has been done in the past. And that is an option that's available to you.
But the applicant still has the right to pull that prior to the meeting.
The applicant, again, has a copy of the study, and they're aware of its conclusion. They likewise have had an engineering consulting firm on board during this application process. They have the right to
ask you to table the current application or to go so far as to withdraw the current application. That's their prerogative. They could exercise that up to, and in fact, during the hearing process to be conducted next week.
I was trying to find out. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Anybody got anything to report on?
Went to the city commission meeting last evening, and they, it was a long meeting, but it was a very productive meeting, and they are sending out RFQs for the city comprehensive, for the city to do a comprehensive plan. What, I can't remember exactly specific, but it was a little bit more narrow than the one that we're doing, and it was kind of
Land use,
long.
like infrastructure or something else?
Well, I think on their land use, mostly it's the land, I think it's land use comprehensive plan. So they'll be submitting that out, or they're sending out, they were approved to send out the RFQ last evening for that. And just some other city issues and city business things. It seemed to go, it was interesting.
Mr. Culberson, anything in Easton?
Not really on Easton, but on the workforce committee that I'm on, I call them job service still,
Yeah.
like they used to be called. They've included Leavenworth County in their scope for the new airport project. They're going to hire 1,200 workers, and there's a company that's looking into providing logistic services for daycare, transportation, things like that. So the local job service here, I'm getting together some of the city representatives. I was going to try to catch them before they left, and talk about what services they're going to try to provide and get us included in that.
Okay. Then I went to the, of course, Baser City Council meeting last Wednesday night. Seemed to be a consensus of the council not to move forward with the urban growth management this time, but it's still on the agenda because it was published on the 28th. Went to the beef improvement dinner on Saturday night and took a tour of the livestock nutrition center that's in the caves down off of Loring. It's a pretty impressive setup down there in the caves. I didn't know that business was down there.
I didn't either.
So then I'll go to Fairmount Township meeting tomorrow night, Thursday night. That's all I got. And then, of course, next week's Mid-America Regional Council meeting. And we'll go to Manhattan on Thursday. That's all I've got.
Just a couple quick things. I can't remember if I volunteered or was voluntold, honestly. But Friday, there's a civic council meeting of Greater Kansas City and Shawnee that I'll be attending on Friday morning. And I'm going to try to make the Lansing Leavenworth Chamber luncheon as well on Friday. So, and we talked about a meeting on Monday, potentially in Topeka.
KDOT, KTA.
KTA. So those are the next up.
I had a town hall meeting last night, and we're gonna have one next Tuesday in Tonganoxie. And basically going over the budget and their input on any county road one, I'm sure will come up, and whatever they're interested in to talk about. Went to the Tonganoxie City Council meeting on Monday, and that was good. And I think that's about it.
Okay. And if there's nothing else, we'll adjourn.